Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Dog Talk. This is episode 138.
I'm Cam and this is Julie.
Yes, this week we have a double portion for you. And if you would like to check out what we've done the last couple of years, you can check out episode 40A and B and 41A and B. And also 91, 91A and B. Yes.
So
take it away.
Yeah. So the reason why, like she said, double portion, 2 years ago, the portions were separated because we had that extra month in the year, making it a 13-month year on the Hebraic calendar. So we really covered, not ours. Don't get all confused. What? I've been missing a month. So
there's what's wrong with me. That's why we're still in winter.
Exactly. This week we go from, the 12th chapter of Leviticus to chapter 15, which really it's two short portions that make the double.
I was gonna say, that's not very long.
Because it's not very overwhelming. So we're going to look at some of the, themes that run through it is a better way to put it. I really had a hard time this year just concentrating on the actual reading. I kept going back and forth and seeing stuff all over. I've been in Ezekiel and I've been really doing Ezra and Nehemiah and some of Esther. She's got some good stuff on Esther. And as I've been going through them all, I'm seeing these hints that keep showing foreshadows of the future, but also referring back to this part of Israel being set apart. So I thought we would look at those types of items. In chapter 8 of Leviticus and 9 is where we have the priest being set apart, right?
Right.
But if you think about it, Leviticus 1 through middle of 6, I think it's chapter 6, verse 8 of Leviticus, from the very beginning, that's kind of like, okay, Israel, here's how you're set apart. All of you. Then from there, from chapter mid-6, and then we start moving into 8 and 9, it's now we're pulling the priest out and how they're going to be set more apart, right? Now we move into what happens in Leviticus 10, which is the killing, right, or the death of Nadab and Abihu. And now the Lord is telling Aaron, don't mourn. You're going to draw near, but only draw near when. So, and then he's going to tell that in chapter 16 of Leviticus. But what happens is that kind of goes on hold. And now he's showing, again, corporate, all of Israel, how to be set apart. This is also seen as to what's being taught in chapter 10. The Lord says you're going to teach them the difference between clean and unclean. You're going to teach them how they can appropriately draw near. And then, again, goes in and shows that. Now, let's talk about, in real life time, what's happening. On that day, the 8th day of this ceremony, back in verse 10, 9, 10, you actually have, again, number 7, where now each tribe starts to bring theirs. And on that first day, we have the tribe of Judah, who's bringing his offering. Now, when it said that the goat that we have Moses looking for in chapter 10 and can't find, remember the sin offering?
Right.
That
it was burned up.
Truly believe that that's not Nisan, the tribe of Judah's offering. It's probably being referred to as in the one that was for Israel. Now, let me throw this out there. If he was sad that day, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't eat any of the one from the tribe of Judah either. He lost his appetite for the entire day. It may be, this whole day I'm just trying to keeping it together.
Well,
I got to keep it together. So that would mean that the other one, if it were the case, that would mean that the sin offering of that day that wasn't partaken of was the entire nation as well as Judah. I find it interesting, since Messiah is the head of Judah and all of Israel, that would make both parts that Yeshua is really kind of representing are involved in the representation of not having the high priest partake in it. Again, that's complete speculation. It's just Kamenese. It's just an interesting thought.
How interesting. You have Aaron that experienced both sides of the coin, so to speak. He experienced a great loss, but at the same time, he experienced the absolute awe of the Lord. And I think about that with us someday, while we're going to experience the absolute awe of the Lord, that's
Right.
going to require a great loss.
Right, yeah. It's like praying for Jerusalem.
Yeah,
you
the
can't
peace
wait
of
to see the
Jerusalem.
hope of what's going to happen, but at the same time, it's the bitterness and sadness of what's going to have to take place to get us there.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You know, we want Yeshua to come so bad,
Right.
but what does that require?
Yeah,
It's a great loss.
it is. It's a good point.
Yeah.
So looking back again at this whole idea of drawing near, which is what we have, Nahab and Abihu did it incorrectly.
Right.
And so the Lord's like, halt. I'm going to show you how you can draw near. So I thought, let's go back and look at the drawing near events. We have in Exodus 3:5 where Moses draws near. If you remember, there's the burning bush. There's fire. He draws near and the Lord's like, stop, take your shoes off. That's
Right.
all he had to do before he went near the fire.
Right.
But then we have in Exodus 12:48 where now Israel, all those that want to partake of the Passover lamb, can draw near, but they have to be circumcised. All right?
Yeah.
So now there's a little bit more sacrifice, or, you know, a little bit more that's required to draw a little bit closer. All right? And then we move to Exodus 16:9-10. Now this is interesting. The people, this is where they're questioning, are you going to really take care of us? Are you going to really feed us? I mean, you got us out of that, but are you a loving God?
Right.
And now he comes to them in a cloud, and he allows them to draw near, and he shows that he will support them. He will be there for them through a cloud. So now we have fire, a meal with a lamb, and a cloud. And then we move to chapter 19 of Exodus. What happens there?
I don't know.
He comes from heaven onto Mount Sinai.
Yes, okay.
So now it's even closer. And remember what the people have to do? They have to cleanse themselves for 3 days, change their garments. A little bit more is happening. We have this again in Exodus 24, where they have to cleanse themselves. And then what happens? They're sprinkled with blood.
Right.
You see how we're getting a little bit more prepared, a little bit more prepared. Now we're setting up so that when the tabernacle is set and built, he's going to dwell among them, right?
Right.
So this is in Exodus 40. He's now got the fire, the cloud, the land. All these aspects are coming down off the mountain into the tabernacle to dwell with them.
It's like he's fleshing it out, fleshing it out,
Yes.
fleshing it out, fleshing it out. Now it can come.
Right, and each time he's revealing more of what needs to happen so that he can dwell with them without them being fried.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So then we have this event here with Nahab and Abihu of,
Just had epiphany.
oh, what was your
No, go
epiphany?
ahead. Go ahead. I'll tell you at the end.
Okay. Okay, oops, you did this wrong. Now, there was a comment made by Rabbi Foreman, no, not true, Rabbi Richmond, and he says that every time you have the first type of offering presented, you have a did it right and did it wrong. Like Adam, he was supposed to
Right.
eat properly, and he didn't guard properly, so he lost. Messiah comes, and he guards properly.
Right.
We have Cain and Abel. Abel's was accepted, Cain's was not. Here we have this, again, first time in the tabernacle. One's accepted, one's not, showing us what to and what not to do. And there's always going to be someone who's going to be a happy representation of what not to. We see that in the Brit Hadashah when the Lord says, woe to. All the woe to's are the ones who are showing us how not to do it.
Right.
But they're
right.
still going to be there, and the Lord's still going to use them. They're absolutely still vessels of the Lord to show a bigger lesson to everybody else, or teach a lesson. Then we move from Nahab and Abihu's, don't do this, everything on hold, but nothing's really going on hold. In other words, this in our reading, we're learning what they're going to have to teach, because the Lord says you're going to have to teach this. But in reality, everything is still rolling along. But again, that pattern is, I'm kind of repeating myself, but again, that pattern is to look at what Israel's going to do and then going back. So in chapter 16 of Leviticus, we're going to have Aaron who's told how to draw near to go into the Holy of Holies. So maybe it doesn't seem as significant from Exodus 40 where we have him coming into the tabernacle and dwelling that this should be that important, but this is that important. This is the way that you can draw the closest. Now, in the temple, we'll talk about the temple because that was during Yeshua's time. In the temple, there's the court of the women, right? And in the court of the women, there are chambers. There's 4 chambers. One of the chambers is called the chamber of the leper. That's where, once the leper goes through being seen by the priest as, yes, you're cleansed, before they were allowed, the ceremony was over, before they were allowed to go back into the temple, they would wait in this room. And then once the ceremony was finished, then they were able declared clean or whatever it was that happened. That was the room. But so I started thinking that was an empty room.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, that was pretty much. I'm sure people are like, can we just use it for storage because there's
no
really,
one ever gets.
There's
cleansed.
not a lot of lepers coming in. Waste of space. Yet when Messiah comes, you suddenly have traffic.
Overflow.
Yeah, you have traffic in there. You're like, well, excuse me, buddy, you're probably in the wrong room. You probably meant to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the first leper in there? I was like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. I've been healed.
Yeah.
Whoa. I mean, the testimony is impacting more than just that person's life. It's impacting the priesthood, the Israelites. I mean, it's impacting everyone because they're seeing something that hasn't been done before and not in a regular basis. So I had this thought. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just throwing it out there. So we know that the way one is determined to have leprosy is the priest declares it, right? Because even in the household, they say, if you think there's leprosy in your household, get everything out before it's declared.
Right.
Right? And don't you declare it. It only is the priest. So in events like Naaman, I'm like, how interesting is that? He's said to have leprosy. And then here's what's interesting is it's a servant girl up in his area who says, oh yeah, well there's a prophet who could heal you.
Right.
Yet that's not that's not like a pattern that's happened.
Right.
That prophet hasn't been like healing a bunch of lepers.
Right.
So it makes me go, what in her mind, besides the Lord stirring her to say it, made her go, it's happening down in Israel when that's not what's been happening. So when Naaman goes down, right, he's then goes through the process of dipping in the Jordan 7 times and then's healed, okay? And then he goes about his business. He's never told to go to the tabernacle. He's never told, well, there isn't a temple yet. So he's not told to go to the tabernacle. He's not told to do anything else that Israel would have done because his healing was not a testimony to Israel. Yet, what the prophet did in the healing was a testimony to Israel, if that makes sense. Because who he healed was from the north, not a part of the lost Israel, but it's still one who's of the nations coming in and being healed.
Right.
And that's huge. That happened first, which then makes me start to think about the wedding stuff, which we'll go into what Julie's going to talk about later. And that was who's invited first to heal. He's invited first his own, and they're like, no, thank you. It's not really going to happen. So fine, I'll have the nations come, and they're going to accept the healing.
Right.
And then that's going to make you jealous because you're going to see that I'm healing them, but you're not healed. So it's going to drive you back to see why it's not happening.
Right.
For it's just this interesting thing that I see
patterns
with the leprosy.
I was thinking about something earlier when you talked about how the Lord showed how corporate set apart and then he honed in, right? So I'm thinking about today.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about how for years and years and years and years, the church as a whole, collective, the big, has been, calling on the Lord. Send us your fire. Come dwell with us. We want to be in your courts. There's all these songs, all this worship. Everyone's pressing in, trying to this and that and the other. And he's almost like, hold on. Let me show you how.
Yes.
So you don't get fried.
Yes.
And now you have all these people returning to Torah, learning how to properly draw near.
Yeah.
So at some point, he's going to have to teach that to the collective.
Right.
And I would wonder the timing of that.
Absolutely. I would say that the beginning of teaching to the collective is begun. Yeah. Like you said, that's where we're coming out of this fog. Right. And something else that if you really look at these between 12 and 15 of Leviticus, he's showing between clean and unclean, how to be clean. Because remember, the clean aspect is you can draw the closest to whatever your station or ability to draw to Lord allows you, okay? In other words, if you're a Gentile, you can't go into
all the way in.
You can only go up to the point. If you're offering a sacrifice or offering, you can go up to that point, right? So you can't go all the way. However, you can still, as someone unclean, go up to the Temple Mount. You could go to the court of the Gentiles.
Right.
You just couldn't go past. So the point of clean and unclean, again, is how close do you want to be? Now, in some of these, you have to wait and be patient, right? But think about us today. That's what we're learning. How close do we want to be? He's showing those who really want to be close how to be close, how to be set apart. You know, in Psalms 24, I think it's 3, 4, 5, and 6, I think. It's where it talks about, you know, who can go up to the mountain, the one who has clean hands and a clean heart.
Right.
And it's funny because the two words, one's innocent or clean, and then one's clean and pure, the two words. Neither of those words are this type of clean.
Right.
They both have to do more with you've been tried and tested, and you've been seen as a son, and you're blameless. These are only things that require us going through the fire,
Right.
and having, through Messiah's righteousness, had that righteousness put upon us, so we can now do what we're supposed to do. You know,
Right.
and so I say that because that is the close that you can go up on the mountain once you've been covered in Him, and then we walk according to how we're supposed to walk, right? So here we see where they can go up a certain point, but they have to then wait until they get the cleansed, which is a different than that one because this is the earthly cleansed. But Psalms is the heavenly cleansed.
Right.
The heavenly cleanse, again, requires more. It requires the book of Hebrews type thing. But the earthly requires Leviticus.
Right.
Leviticus and Hebrews, heavenly, earthly.
Yeah.
They don't replace each other. They have to work hand in hand.
They shadow. Yeah.
Right.
One
So
shadows the other.
We can't let go of the earthly just to say it's all heavenly because you know what?
We're still on earth.
Thank you. We are still on earth, and if this is a shadow of there, why don't we want to do what we need to here to show our part in being clean? You know, and granted, we can't become clean per se at this point for certain things. We can go through the process, but we can't, like if touching a dead person, you can't. There's no red heifer at this point, you know. So we do what we can, and I think
we're learning it and guarding it.
Yes, and guarding it is doing what we can. I think the Lord really will honor
That's where
that.
we're at right now.
And allow us to draw closer than we ever knew. And just like with food and all these other things, we choose to clean our containers, and then He's able to fill it up without us having the negative results.
The toxins in the way.
Yeah, right.
Or whatever.
Or the confusion, you know, we get
Whatever
a little
it
more
is.
clarity. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
So anyway, I know that we didn't really cover any specifics this week. It has, again, all to do with being clean and unclean and how to draw near. Every single part has to, how in your everyday life to stay in a position of being able to draw near, because that's what we really want. We want to draw near to the Lord. And in James 4:8, I believe, it's, you know, resist the devil and he will flee, right? But it's draw near to him and the enemy must flee. That's
right.
what it is. It's the drawing near to him. And we have the exact directions of how to do that. We can't make up how and what it looks like. We've got to follow what He's asked us to.
Right. Yesterday or the day before or sometime you had made a comment about it depends on what you have your back to.
Yes.
You know, when you're facing the Lord, your back is to the enemy.
Right.
Right? But if
Right.
you're facing the enemy, your back is to the Lord. And I loved that because it really put it in perspective of drawing near to the Lord and they will flee.
Right.
I mean, they're not even there.
Yeah.
But when our focus is on what He's doing, the enemy's doing, then that's our backs to the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's where we want to focus. That's really what's important.
Right. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next week with episode 139,
Yeah.
almost to 140.
Ooh, almost. It's like Iron Man.
That's right. All right, we hope you have a fantastic week.
Shalom.